So this is a little similar to the size of the fire that EJ and I had the night after he sought medical treatment, and he was treated, and then I slept on this side of the fire, he slept on this side, and I decided to stay out there even though I usually stayed in my little MRI cave, because I wanted to check on his condition. And I was laying on my stomach, and I wasn't sleeping because you hardly slept there. And the fire was about, it wasn't even this big, because it had been this big, but it started to go out. So EJ woke up, and he said he was like kind of grabbing some sticks and trying to sort of put the fire together. And I was about that far away, like, I'm trying to see where my finger's showing up here. Right about like that, because we had to use the fire for warmth because there was no vegetation to use for a shelter, because the acacia leaves would dry up in just a few minutes after you cut them down, and they would just turn to dust. So the only protection we had from the, approximate 35 to 45 degree Fahrenheit weather at night to keep from freezing to death was fire. And also for me, the cave, and then I had a little fire at the head of the MRI cave. I called it MRI cave because it was like being in an MRI machine. So my head would stick out, and the rest of me was in this little tiny cave. Anyhow, while I'm laying there with my stomach down, he dropped a red hot coal about the size of like a little bit bigger probably than a duck egg between my two buttocks cheeks. It burned full thickness, and it caused me to clench with the burning fire, and I flipped over with screaming, of course, with the red hot coal still there in place, and it burned all the way through all the skin layers and was burning the meat. And anyways, so that led to a toxic kind of situation due to its location and the heat in Africa, and the fact that it couldn't breathe and dry. And so, and of course with no good ways to do it on site in Africa, with EJ's help, I was held down while peeling off layers of dead, burnt skin, so that your goal is that it will heal from the inside out, not the outside in, because that traps in the infection. So each day the layers of skin had to be peeled off, which was one of the most excruciating pains I've ever felt. And then of course we had no clothes, so we were sleeping on dirty ground next to animal water hole, which had animal excrement. So you have every toxicity available to man, and you're sitting on your bum. And there's no chairs, there's no furniture, there's no bed, so you're laying on your bum. So that's how I finished Naked and Afraid. And instead of Discovery letting me have an extra day, which I asked for, which was denied, to recover in country, they had me booked on the original flight, and it was a 24-hour flight back to Alaska. By the time I landed in Alaska, I had fever, I had blood infection. It went through my body. It ravaged me. I was cauterized 6 times over 2 months. I had to lay on my stomach. I was by myself, living on a boat in Alaska in the wintertime. All by myself, didn't know anybody. I'd recently moved there, thousands of miles from my friends and family. And I spent almost 2 months recovering there before eventually getting worse. And I was trying to recover there, and it was getting worse. And it came to the point where I felt like I had to do something different, and I didn't know what to do. And every time I'd go back to the doctor, the infection was worse. And I honestly started smelling, my whole body started smelling like rotten meat. It was infected, it was gangrene, it was pus, it was nasty. And parts of my body were sloughing off around that wound. And so I couldn't see that wound site to monitor it as well as I wanted. So I actually flew back to Wisconsin under the disagreement of my doctors because they felt that the flight could kill me. And I flew anyway because I felt I had to go to someone that I could trust to help treat my wounds. So I went to a very dear friend's house who had to help clean my pus, which literally smelled like rotting meat. And that person saved my life. And it was a humbling experience, painful experience. I continued to be seeking medical treatment in Wisconsin. And the ladies there at the hospital and the centers did a wonderful job. And eventually they helped me heal. So I have a forever scar there. And there's a lot more to the story, but that's the gist. So some of you have asked before what my injury was, and that's it.